And I've been looking at some of your content, and you've been talking about some coins and some tokens and some opportunities. So excited to talk about that on the show today. Really kind of a macro perspective. So again, thanks for being here. And Lark Davis.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk crypto. It's one of my favorite things to do.
I see you on Twitter all the time because you got that ad campaign running, and obviously your retargeting is brilliant. We are subscribers to your stuff, and if anyone's watching this and you want a newsletter that I think is wicked, definitely check it out. I'll put links below. But the retargeting, I see you popping up all the time. And then as I was doing my research for this show, I was like, dude, you got 500,000 YouTube subs, 1 million Instagram followers, over 1 million followers on Twitter. So in social media context, you're quite the famous dude. Where did all this start? Because that doesn't happen overnight. Like where did the journey into crypto DeFi and becoming a, and you may hate this, influencer in crypto and DeFi, where where did that start? What
Well,
got you into
one,
this?
one, one quick note before I dive into that is actually the Instagram account is not me. It's an impersonator,
It
believe
is
it or
someone
not.
impersonating you, no doubt.
And
They
I
got a
can't
million
actually,
followers.
I know, and I can't actually, I think they've stolen the account from somebody else. And I can't actually
Wow.
start an account on Instagram because every time I do, they report me for being an impersonator, which is
Wow. I need to look
quite
at
the
that. I
hilarious
did not know
situation. Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we don't actually have we have an Instagram account, but it's under the Wealth Mastery brand, not under my personal name.
Got
So every
it.
time I start with my personal name, the impersonator reports me for impersonating the impersonator.
No doubt. And
Pretty
so
crazy.
what are they
Anyway,
selling? Because they take it to
they
the
they they DM people with like Bitcoin mining scams and stuff like this, and invest, get people to put money on. So be careful out there, guys.
yeah,
Be
don't
careful out
don't don't
there.
go to this thing. That's got a
Yep,
million
that's not a
followers.
verified account, right? Not a
Unreal.
verified account. So
And
you
you
got to be
can't
really
get it. You
careful out
can't
there.
even get it. You can't the
I've been
team.
trying for 2 years to get
That's
Meta to take it
crazy.
down, and they just won't help me at all. It's
That's
nuts.
crazy.
Anyway, that's
So we'll
that's
X-nay the
a little note
Instagram,
there.
but on YouTube and
Yeah,
Twitter, definitely check them out.
yeah, yeah. So what got me into crypto is funny because I started making content back in 2017, and
Okay.
my mom and I were having this conversation about stuff, and she was getting into the sort of the more like anarchy side of Bitcoin and Monero and stuff like that, and I said, hey, yeah, I really need to like do more with this. And so I started getting down the rabbit hole. How can I actually earn crypto? And one of the ways I started doing that was actually on the Steam blockchain. I don't know if you remember that or not, but it was kind of like a social media platform where you'd post blog articles, videos, memes, whatever. And if
Okay.
you got upvotes, you made money.
Got
So
it.
the Steam blockchain would pay out rewards to people every day. And it was kind of cool. And I made a little bit of money, but I started just having a lot of fun making the content. And I started making a lot of crypto content after I started doing travel blogs and stuff. And I started doing crypto content because I was super interested in it. And people started asking a lot of questions. Those blog posts started becoming the most popular. And so I got to a point, I was like, man, I've spent a lot of time writing these blog posts. I'm just going to start making YouTube videos, and I'll post a link to the YouTube video over here on Steam. And then the YouTube
And
videos
this
blew
was in
up. And
17.
this is in 17,
Okay.
yeah. And so it was, yeah, a very interesting time to get into the market, back in
Yeah.
2017. And so, yeah, I mean, I started documenting my journey as a cryptocurrency investor and learning about crypto, learning about these new blockchains, giving my opinion on stuff. It was fun. I was having a lot of
Yeah.
fun, and it just ballooned into something bigger than that. And I quit my day job in
What was the
November
day
of
job?
2017. I was an English teacher.
Got it.
So
Cool.
yeah, which is cool. I
I
loved
love
it.
that
Loved
story.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that. And then of course the 2018 bear market came, and I just stuck with it. I said, no, this is the thing. This is like you were saying at the start, like this is the big thing.
Yeah.
This is going to be the big thing. And I stuck with it, and I have absolutely zero regrets for having done that.
You
It's
were
crypto
right.
has changed my life, and I absolutely love it. And I feel blessed to work in this industry every day.
Yeah. And you were right. I love talking to people who've been through at least one or two cycles because they are accumulating right now and they're really excited. They were more excited when Bitcoin was 16 grand, but they still seem pretty excited. And I think they just take a very opposite approach from most people. Most people start getting excited at 50 grand and they're going to start buying it. So what's kind
Yeah.
of exciting you? What do you see in the landscape? Just kind of zooming out. Maybe some investors are thinking of getting in, or maybe some investors sold at the wrong time, but they keep this crypto thing, like they're interested in it. What's sort of your macro perspective of what's going on in the markets right now?
I think right now is one of the best times to actually be dialed into the market. And the unfortunate reality, and I've talked about this so many times, is that most people are not dialed in. So if you're here, if you're listening to this conversation right now, I have good news for you because you're here at a very opportune time, because most people only show up when new all-time highs come in.
Yeah.
Most people only buy the top. We look at all the metrics, all the data, When Coinbase app gets to number one on the App Store, that's
Yeah.
a signal for you to sell, not a signal to buy, right?
Yeah.
That's a danger time in the markets. And when we see that euphoria, that greed, unfortunately, that's when most people come in because they think it's easy money. But that's not easy money time. That's danger time. Warren Buffett said it the best, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. And guess what? Now is not a time of extreme greed, right? You didn't have to buy Bitcoin at 16 or 17K, whatever the bottom ended up being at. And that a lot of people get screwed up by that because they think, well, I didn't buy it when it was at the Pico bottom and therefore I missed out. No, man, I've been accumulating steadily. I've been steadily accumulating Bitcoin, a bit of Ethereum, a few top altcoins. And I'm looking at, okay, if in 12, 18, 24 months, I can make, life-changing money once again, fantastic. Like that's just around the corner. Like it's we lose perspective in crypto about how fast things can actually go. I mean, we get the kind of returns in 18 to 24 months that stock investors might get in 18 to 24 years.
In a lifetime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting you say that. What do you think it is? I mean, I know it's deeply grained in psychology and I mean it's just there's a lot of reasons why, but why? Because I think when you ask someone, okay, so I know many successful people, whatever you want to define as success, and they're not that smart. And when I say that, like I didn't go to college, university, and I thought these people must have had 18 degrees and they're super intelligent. They're like geniuses with an IQ of 250. And I started working my way into masterminds maybe 7 years ago. And I started meeting these people who ran, multi-million dollar companies or multi-million dollar investors, or even in acquisitions and buying and selling companies. And I'm like, they must be so smart. And when I kind of hung out with them, they really weren't. They had a book of principles, very basic principles, and they just stuck to the basics. And I think when I look at the crypto landscape, like it is pretty basic. It's like Warren Buffett stuff of like buy when people are or when people are fearful, get in, or like money is made in the bear market. It's like it's pretty basic principles by now. Why do you think people? I think they know it. Is it fear? Is it do they look at Lark Davis with millions of followers and however much money you have invested, it's probably quite a bit, or you've made a ton of money, and they're just like Lark has something that I don't, or I'm not as smart as him, or I'm not as success. Like, what is it that keeps people doing the complete opposite of what's actually good for them?
Yeah, human emotions. And this is why like technical analysis and stuff like that is valid and has, predictive capabilities, we
Right.
can say, because it's really all those charts are simply a play out of human emotional responses to what's happening in the markets to an extent, right? And if you want to take a more macro perspective and not get so granular, it's just simply we are our own worst enemies when it comes to it. We get greedy and look, even the best investors fall down to this, right? And I certainly should have taken more money off the table at the top of the last
Me
bull
too.
run, right? And
Me too.
I was
Me
patting
too.
myself on the back saying, look at all this money I took off the table. But then, the bear market comes like, I should have taken more off, sold more of those altcoins and all that kind of stuff. But it's simple human psychology. And it's really hard to overcome, especially during your first cycle, right? We say often you need one cycle to learn all the mistakes and to get completely, your butt handed to you, and a second to make money. And if you've been through 21, 22, and you're here now, well, guess what? You've probably learned a lot. You had a baptism by fire. And if you survived, if you haven't capitulated, if you haven't lost everything, now's not the time to get chopped up by trying to do 100x leverage trades. Like you can do some trades,
Yeah.
there's opportunities out there all the time, right? But take that big picture because the time of irrational greed will return because humans don't change. This is why markets have bull markets,
Yeah.
right? Because irrational greed will always come back.
Yeah. What would you say? Because I hear this a lot is, well, it's going to be different this time. I was in the entrepreneurship space for a decade, and every business owner says this. If I just had that business, it'd be so much easier to run and my problems would go away. And typically, businesses are all kind of the same. They just like, deliver it differently. There's subtle differences, but fundamentally, a business is the same, and your problems will follow you to every business you start until you learn how to solve those problems. So when people say, because you hear that a lot, is well, this time it'll be different. This bull run will be different, and I'm sure there's going to be subtle differences. What's your kind of response to that when if you hear it? I hear it all the
Yeah.
time. So
It's always different and it's always the same, right? There's going to be new catalysts, new Ponzi's, new ways to make money, new blockchains that are faster and better and
right.
whatever. but it's all going to be the same crap. It's all the same irrational greed that comes in, because the one factor, the reason why it's always the same is because there's one factor in markets that don't change, and that's us.
Humans.
Humans have the same emotional responses to greed and fear and boredom and all these kinds of things. And so the events change, right? We're going to get a Bitcoin ETF, massively bullish event, right? All these different little factors. We're going to get new blockchains. They're going to do this, that, and the other thing. We have new investors coming to the space, and new meme coins, and new DeFi protocols, and new novel concepts being developed technologically. That's all great. So that makes it different. But the factor is the same as us, and we are going to have similar responses, right? The question that you as an investor need to ask yourself is that if you've been here for a cycle, do you want to repeat the same mistakes? And knowing the mistakes that everyone else is going to make, do you want to follow the herd over the cliff next time? Right? A lot of people don't want to do that. And so the question becomes how to not do that. And that's to have that strong emotional fortitude when the time comes to take some money off the table.
Love it. When it comes to taking money off the table, I have set for every investment, I kind of have a price point that I'm looking at, like, okay, here's where I could see it getting to. And then I've got little steps to start taking money off the table. So if I think something is going to hit, it's $1 now, it's going to be $10, and I really think it could hit $10 or above, I've got my little set sell points. And that's just my lazy way of, I just want to make it as easy as possible for me.
Sure.
With the last cycle, when I had my mom and when I had friends calling me who knew nothing about investing, being like, how do I get Bitcoin? I think Bitcoin was at like, it was at an all-time high. When they were calling me, I should have, the signal should have been loud of like, hey, this is getting a little crazy. From everything you learned from the last cycle and the mini cycles you've been a part of, what would you tell someone who's like, I want to do it right this time, I want to take some profits, I want to maximize those profits. I know we can't predict when the best time to sell is, but based upon a kind of a strategy maybe you've developed, what would you tell people?
Sure. And I think that one of the most important things here is that you're never going to hit and almost no one. There's maybe like one guy who buys the exact perfect bottom and sells the exact perfect top, but almost no one's going to do that. And the fear of missing out on future gains is what keeps people in bags that go down 99%.
Yep.
Right. And it's so hard to admit that you've made a mistake too, and that you didn't sell soon enough, and that, hey, you know what? This coin was worth $100 last week. It's only worth $50 this week, but I bought it for $1. I'm still up 50x, but I'm not going to sell because I could have had more. Yeah, you could have had more, but you didn't. But now you still have 50x, right? So actually having the ability to take that profit off the table and to click the sell button, it can be so hard, but you just have to realize that you're not going to exactly perfectly time the top. And maybe you're the exception of the rule, and you're the one guy who sells out at the exact perfect time, but it's probably not going to be you. So you have to understand that you're going to ladder out, right? You're going to say, hey, you know what? This coin's up 50x, I'm going to sell half. It's gone up another 10x, I'm going to sell half it, et cetera, right? There's different strategies that reduce the risk and the stress. Because what happens is when the number gets too big, it screws your head up so bad. When you're looking at a position that's worth $1 million and you're going, man, it could be worth 2 million tomorrow. Maybe it is worth 2 million tomorrow, or it could be worth 500,000 tomorrow. And both of those, because especially, I mean, look, right? I wasn't rich before I got into crypto, right? Thank goodness for crypto. It's been a blessing in my life. But the reality is that when you look at those big numbers, if you've never seen those big numbers on your screen before, psychologically, it is very, very difficult. And so you can actually reduce that psychological risk of yourself by laddering out and reducing that over time, right? So you don't have to sell 100% of your position. You say, man, I got $1 million profit sitting on the table. I'm going to take 10% out. I'm going to take 15%. I'm going to take 20%, 25%, whatever. Keep the rest. Let it run a little bit. Maybe it goes down, and then I can, do that, but maybe it doubles and I make more money, right? And so these little strategies can help you reduce that risk of yourself from not making the decision, right? By just taking a little bit of money off the table, and then a little bit more money off the table. And in terms of when to do it, that those sentiment analysis things tend to be so effective, actually. And look, there's a lot of different indicators we can look at, from the buy cycle top indicator to oversold RSI on the monthly and the weekly and all this kind of stuff, right? And those are all very valid things. But if you don't know how to look at those, right, one of the easiest ways to do it, watch for Coinbase, Crypto.com, whatever top cryptocurrency exchange apps to be in the top 5 apps being downloaded. That's a big red flag. Look for the media to be talking about cryptocurrencies as the new paradigm of money. I mean, back in 2017, there was this perfect example. Basically, the day that Bitcoin hit its new all-time high back in 2017, I think it was the New York Times it was like December 18th, 2017 or something.
Okay.
And but it was the New York Times. They published this article, and it was two crypto bros, one with an Ethereum sweater on and one with a Bitcoin sweater on, said, everyone's getting hilariously rich and you're not. Top signal, right?
Right.
With these kind of sentiment analysis
Yep.
from mainstream media, when we see the night shows talking about it, Colbert and Jimmy Fallon, whatever, when they're, putting up their NFTs or
Yep.
talking about whatever, that's, again, it means the herd has arrived and
Yep.
mania is here. And of course, one of the biggest things, and I got the same conversations. I had two friends come within a week of each other in April 2021, and they were both saying, hey, I'm not into crypto, but I'm gonna go and buy some Shiba Inu. And I'm just
Right.
like, oh, what's going on here?
This is it.
Right? This is it. And so when you start, because people are going to know that you're into crypto, if you're here now, listen to this conversation, people are going to know, right? And so when the time comes, when the mania comes, they're going to call you up and say, hey, man, I know I didn't buy Bitcoin when it was like, back in 2023 and it was worth 75% less of what it is right now, but I want to buy it now. So why don't you tell me how to do that? Those are the signals, right?
Yep.
These are the signals. And it's up to you as the investor to actually be able to listen to them when they start happening. And that's one of the hardest things to do.
Got it. Little side note, because you mentioned you didn't have money before crypto. Then at one point you had money. Thank God for crypto, you said. I had a mentor who sold and exited a company, and we were kind of going through. We were getting huge cash injections through a business, and I was like, "This is the first time I saw a lot of money." And he's like, "When I sold my company, I had 7 figures in the bank for the first time in my life, and I was driving my little minivan around town, and I started realizing I could go into any car dealership and buy any car cash." And he was smart enough and self-aware enough to say, I spent a decade making this money and I could lose it with 3 bad decisions. These millions are gone. So
Mm-hmm.
he seeked out counsel to be like, help him deal with this money because he didn't have, he wasn't rich before. And there's a whole new psychology and way of thinking, which is why lottery winners will typically lose everything they made. Little side note, because there will be some people listening who run into a bunch of money coming up if they play this right. And when they do get that money, maybe from your experience, I'm not sure what your crypto was worth or if you want to disclose it, but you looked at your accounts, you sold, you're sitting on more money than maybe you're used to. What kind of went through your head, and what would be some advice? And you seem like a pretty self-aware guy, so you were probably like, okay, like don't go buy the Lambo here. Let's
Yeah.
be smart here. Um, and I've seen money ruin people. So easy come, like easy go, unless
Yeah.
you have a plan for it, which it looks like you did. You built an
Absolutely.
awesome company. You've done really well. What's some advice that you'd give to the people who are going to make some money this bull run?
So one of the things that really, and it's funny because I previously thought about the lottery conundrum right before I had any money, and I thought about the lottery conundrum and how people screw it up. And I thought, well, if I ever win the lottery, I'm going to not blow it all on cars and watches, right? I'm going to actually take all the money and buy properties and stocks and whatever stuff, right? And so when the bull runs happen and you get these giant payouts where you see these incredible sums of money coming through the door because tokens are just going like crazy
Yep.
overnight, right? I looked at that as an opportunity to take money off the table and to diversify my wealth away from highly speculative, high risk assets like altcoins, right? And so money went into cash, money went into stocks, money went into metals and stuff like this. And taking basically high risk money and turning it into lower risk money in order to try and keep investments, right? Because you don't want to leave it all just sitting in cash because it loses to inflation and stuff like that. But yeah, to take money off the table and to reinvest it, right? So that you can keep your wealth stored somehow
Yep.
and potential and ideally create cash flow with that wealth, right?
Yep.
So this is a really, really important thing. And one thing I always think about is the again, in terms of people taking profits and stuff, is the regret theory. So really ask yourself when you're looking at that big number, what are you going to regret more, right? That you didn't take some money off the table, or that you could have made some more money? Because most of the time when the bear market comes, people are going to regret that they didn't click the sell button. And one other thing I want to mention too is that lifestyle creep, because I know it's so damn tempting, and I have been very diligent with my spending, right? because I'm always just, maybe it's not tapping enough into the abundance mentality, because I know there will be more money and I do spend money on stuff, right? I'm not
Yep.
afraid to spend money. When we fly, and
Yep.
nicer seats, and I treat myself to some nice things in life, but I definitely don't go overboard, right? And I think the temptation is to spend the money straight away. But I didn't start spending money on extravagances until we got to the point where it was like, there's enough money in the bank that if I spend money on an extravagance, it's 0.1% of our net worth,
Yeah.
not 20% of our net worth to go out and buy a watch or something like that.
Yep.
And I know that there's cash flow coming in from the businesses, the stocks, whatever, that money will be replaced in a very short amount of time.
Yep.
Right. So don't let the lifestyle creep screw you up, because that's where most people lose it. Right. The immediate temptation, I have to go buy a car, I have to go buy a watch, I have to go on the luxury holiday and spend it all. And then in 6 months, you're broke.
Sucks.
Right. I
Yep.
mean, if you took profits, it's also a double-edged sword, because you get all the money, you take the profits, but then you blow it all because you
Yeah.
don't have the discipline once again. So really, if you're here now, if you're listening to this conversation, plan for what you're going to do. Plan for getting rich, right? Be
Yep.
optimistic. Say, I'm going to make $1 million in this next bull run. I'm positioning myself now. I've got the coins I think are going to do it. I'm going to make the money. And then what? And
Yeah.
then what? Right? So really think about how you're going to take that money and not lose it all.
And then what? I think you hit it on the head with, because you were a teacher, and typically teachers aren't very wealthy individuals. Like, they kind of hit the status quo, and sometimes I think even in the educational system you can kind of um you can get lost in that. So I think you nailed it. Is you thought at some point, if I win the lottery, what would I do with it? So you were prepared ahead of time. So because you come, I'm guessing if you were a teacher from a middle class family or so, you're probably
Yep.
earning 50, 60 grand a year. We're not really taught a financial education in, so
Nope.
like we're not taught about finances. The first time I had some money, I literally was more stressed about having money than when I didn't have money, because I felt like I didn't know what to do with it. I was literally freaking out. I had to seek out counsel and just be like, no one teaches you how to invest for cash flow, what to do with your money. And so you think everyone's like, it's a crazy thing. So I get why people go spend it on stuff, because it might just feel safer because now you own the watch or whatever. But start studying about, start developing a financial IQ or a financial education now, and prepare as if you are to be rich, because you will be. If
Mhm.
you keep mining for opportunity, I think everyone has a chance to build wealth, and then have a plan for what you're going to do with it. So you're not making emotional decisions in the euphoria of, I just banked $1 million or whatever people are going to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At plan to be rich. Plan to be
Love it. I
rich,
love
because
that. That's a really good one.
the one thing I always think about this is, people think, well, it can't happen to me, or it can happen to you. And look, it's happened to a lot of people exactly like you.
Yeah.
People have, I was it's funny. I was somewhere the other day, and it was we were flying, and we were in business class, and the thought just crossed my mind, like, the only difference between anybody flying up here and anybody flying in economy class is that these people have money, right? And they're just like everybody else. People who make money are just regular people, exactly like you. The only difference is they made the decisions in their past that allowed them to build the kind of wealth and cash flow to allow them to have that kind of opportunity to have these luxuries in life. And the path to wealth is so well trodden. It's so well documented. We live in an
Yep.
incredible age where you can get on
YouTube.
social media, and all the famous people in the world, the Ray
Mhm.
Dalios and all these people, have left you a guide on how to do
Mhm.
it. You only have to pick it up and follow the map.
Some pretty basic principles. That's what I grew up in a trailer park. And when I started studying, if I saw someone in an exotic car, which I've always secretly wanted when I was 18, but I hated on them. So I pushed the very thing away, of course. Hated these rich people. I thought they were the criminals, they were the crooks. It's the reason we were in a trailer park, blah, blah, blah. And then I had an acting coach, just because I was kind of into it and I thought I'd be famous or something. But he was like, every time you get that resistance, just go up to the person and ask them, what do you do for a living? And I thought they would like, I was gum on the back of their shoe. I thought they would just kind of kick me away. And I remember the first time I rolled into a gas station, saw a Ferrari, I forget what model, Modena or something. And then I asked him what he does. He spent 15 minutes with me talking about real estate, how he got into it. And it changed my whole perception of like, this guy was just like me. He was filling up his car. He just figured something out that I didn't know. And I stopped putting them on a pedestal and started realizing that I even had for an interview, I was going to be like, Lark puts his pants on just like everyone else. And I think people see someone with a million person following or with, a different lifestyle, and they're just like, well, Clark was a high school teacher or a teacher, English teacher, just like you maybe. And he just made some
Yep,
very different decisions because he saw an opportunity and it worked out for him. And if crypto wouldn't have worked out for you, I'm almost sure that some future opportunity would have, because you already locked in thinking about, I'm gonna be rich. And so totally
exactly.
makes sense to me.
I
Yeah.
love that story about the gas station too, because it just really exemplifies that anybody can walk down that path,
Yeah.
and we, a lot of us, like you had, right? I grew up in a family where my mom was definitely in that poverty mentality,
Yeah.
right? Money's scarce, money doesn't grow on trees, rich people are the root of all evil, et cetera, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. And it's just none of that stuff is true. The stories we're told by people without money are
Yeah.
not true, right? If
Yeah.
you want money advice, don't ask people who don't have money because it's a terrible
Totally.
place to get it.
Totally. And you mentioned the first class thing. I wasn't making a ton of money, but I started flying first class. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I wanted to sit next to people who had money and talk with them on a flight. And they were so nice and so human. And it just broke my whole paradigm of, they just made a few different decisions that I haven't made yet. And most of them didn't even start with money. I thought you had to have money to make money. Most of them just found a way to add value into some marketplace
Yeah.
or somewhere, and that's it.
It's quite
So
encouraging to realize the vast majority of the world's millionaires
that's
came
right.
from nothing. It's not inherited money. The vast majority of people who are rich in the world today, it's like 77% or something like that, started with nothing.
Yeah.
So if they did, you
Yeah.
can too. It's
Yeah.
actually the most common way to become a millionaire is to start with nothing. So,
I love that. I love it. And I think the bull run is such a beautiful opportunity. I think what we have that they, because a lot of young people complain about inflation and the home cost of housing, and I get that. Our parents don't have YouTube. We have access to Lark. You can sign up for his newsletter. You can follow him on Twitter. You can follow anybody and get advice. Our parents didn't have that. And you can create online income, or we have crypto, we have different technologies that just wasn't available to our parents. They had to kind of lock in, get a job. So I think the opportunities are abundant. And it's something like 60% of baby boomers or 70% of baby boomers in the next 10 years are passing on their wealth to the next generation. And although
yeah,
you may not be receiving it directly, it's going into the economy to people who are spending money a little differently than our parents and grandparents did. So it's a super exciting time, I think, to be here. I don't know. I'm excited by it.
it's an incredible time to be here. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's like I said, even if you're not the one receiving that money, right? That money is going to go into stocks and crypto and stuff like this. We see
Yeah.
how the baby boomer generation is vested, right? Real estate and stuff like that. And we see how millennials and younger generations are investing, and
Yep.
it's into stuff like crypto, right? People are
Yep.
interested in that technology. They're interested in that as an investment class, and that is where the money is without a doubt flowing. If you look at where it's $1 trillion market cap,
Yep.
all the coins combined, every single
Yep.
cryptocurrency you ever heard of, $1 trillion market cap, and 75% of that is Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yep.
Apple just hit $3 trillion the other day. One company. I mean, to see crypto at a 10 trillion, $20 trillion market cap in the next 10 years is not insane at all. And the money that was made along that path is unbelievable.
Agreed. Agreed. You're getting me excited. I gotta go. My dollar cost average was a Friday, but I might do it today. I might do it after today. I might
Go
I
buy
might
some
do a double
Bitcoin.
this week.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one thing because I think Twitter is vicious. And so when I see someone who's doing well and they post and they have a following, I love going down the thread and just seeing the haters. And it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun for me to see how someone responds. Like, these people are vicious though. Like, they're vicious. And I think a lot of people are held back from actually doing something. Like, so many people I talk to, they have something inside them and they want to share it and they want to build a following and maybe talk about
Mm-hmm.
their expertise or their passion. And one hater will crumble them for weeks, if not sometimes they don't even start because
Yeah.
of the fear of someone calling them
Sure.
fat or look at your nose, or they'll find your little insecurities and pick at it. They're really good at that. You're no stranger to that, and I thought you'd be a really great guy to ask the question if someone's understands that with social media, we live in a different time where we do live in an attention economy, and maybe they have something they want to build, or they just want to start some kind of, they want to start something. I don't know what that may mean to them, but they want to start something, and that means putting yourself out there, but they're not doing it because social media can be pretty vicious, or they're not being their authentic
Mm-hmm.
self because they're
Yes.
afraid of someone really seeing them. Any little advice, because you've gone through this journey?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things you have to realize, it's kind of a similar analogy to paying taxes. If you made money, you have to pay taxes, and it's actually a good thing. And if you are successful on social media, you're going to have people who hate you, and people who are like become really like hardcore haters. You just have to block it out, literally, like block them, right? It's blocking is an exercise in mental self-help, right? So it's just, I always look at it as when blocking people is like, there's people here who want to have a real conversation with me or other people in my community, and those people are taking away from that. So you're doing a disservice to yourself and your community by allowing those voices to live in your feed, so to speak. But you will get haters, and if you are thinking about building something on social media, you will be criticized relentlessly by people who have done nothing with their lives for the most part.
Yeah, they don't even
And
show their emoji, and they have no,
yeah,
like, they're all usually a blank.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's it, or some cartoon avatar or something like that. People who, I always think this is that something like, was it 20% of people suffer from some kind of mental illness, right? And
sure,
it's just like you
sure.
see it on social media, right? You see it on social media, and it's tough. It's tough, right? I'm not by any ways criticizing people who are
Yeah,
struggling in
yeah.
life, but people lash out against other people when they're
Yeah,
feeling bad, when they're
right.
exactly they project out, they project their own insecurities at you, they project their own fears at you, they'll criticize you, and it's tough. And look, at being somebody with a following on social media, being a content creator, we make mistakes, we screw up, we're just people too, and the difference is that when you screw up in front of a million people, and then you get a lot of criticism for it, so it's definitely something that you will have to deal with if you want to go down the route of creating social media content and being present online, and even just being a random Joe Schmo online. People are going to find your account if you even post anything, right? So if you comment on something somewhere, somebody's going to call you whatever, right? So it's just the social media landscape, and unfortunately, social media has allowed people who would never say these things to your face in real life to behave in very terrible ways, and it's almost encouraged by that segment of the internet, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate.
yeah. You said something good there, and I think I've never really thought of that. But with mental illness, you can almost even find some empathy for it. Um, you can almost find some empathy, and that's kind of a nice way to look at it. Of just like
Yeah,
people are
I mean, it's
struggling.
it's honestly just sad sometimes because you see
Yeah,
I mean, it's the hate's directed at you, so it's kind of hard sometimes to
totally.
disassociate that. But then also, you have to realize that people who behave like that, it's not always about you. It's often about them. And when I was going through university, I worked in a restaurant, and we would get, people would
Mm,
come up and complain and stuff like that. And most of the time, okay, something happened, whatever. But when the people would come up and like really scream at you and like freak out and lose
right,
their minds, I always tell myself it has nothing to do with us. It's
right,
because, his wife is cheating on him or something like this, and he needs to take it out on the waiter,
right.
right? Or whatever. And so, it's a bit of that too. Right? It's
Yeah,
this definitely is something that happens on social media.
yeah, yeah. I love it. We got to ask this question because people always expect it. Is we're not timing here, no crazy predictions, and I get you. Just please understand, Lark has his own um, technologies he's most interested in, and he sees it in his unique lens. And I think there's gonna be so much money to make that I don't think there's like, here are the top 5 picks, and if you don't pick these, you won't be successful. There are literally probably hundreds of projects that aren't even on someone's radar at times that that pose a really good chance of success because of the narrative they're fitting or because of maybe the technology they're building out, the team, whatever. You posted a video, I think, as I was doing research today, maybe 2 days, 3 days ago, when you had 4 coins you were talking about. One of them being that Oasis network, which I've kind of been a fan of. I've been stacked a little bit of that. Maybe apart from that video, or maybe in addition to that video, what's sort of like, what are you interested in, so people can do their own research and sort of check it out when it comes to coins, tokens.
Yeah,
What are you kind of, what's kind of, maybe apart from Bitcoin and ETH, what sort of
sure.
make feels good?
So the ones I mentioned in that video were Avalanche,
Yep, that's
Arbitrum,
right.
Injective, and Oasis, right? And Oasis has been one of those funny ones. I feel like it's a bit of a sleeper. It's tapped into all the right stuff, right? It's a novel, interesting blockchain with privacy technology built in, which is going to definitely speak to institutional players and all this kind of stuff. They're really hardcore into the AI sector. They're working with Facebook and Google, and like interesting stuff going on there, right? So it's actually around private sale price right now. I own all those coins I just mentioned, by the way. Just let you guys know. So obviously I have a vested interest in hoping that they do well, right? But we're not selling these anytime soon, right? These are bull run coins. But I see a lot of interesting projects coming out there. And you made a good point that when the bull run comes, there's going to be a lot of coins that make a lot of money, right? So there's no perfect coin to get. And look, some of them are simply going to fail. And I'm hoping that the 4 that I just mentioned are going to be ones that have great success in the next bull run, and that they're not the next sort of, 2017 hot thing that doesn't go hot the next market cycle, right? But Avalanche is one that's impressed me a lot. I think they're just bear market builders, right? They've released so much cool technology right throughout the bear market. They've been just pushing ahead and doing cool stuff, and they've got the right kind of tokenomics that I think can have good price appreciation moving forward. The Injective team, so that's a Cosmos-based blockchain, and they're about to release like a big dApp. Oh man, it's crazy. It's such an underrated network, right? Because Cosmos is like this beating heart of the Cosmos ecosystem, and then blockchains like Injective build on top of that, and then dApps come and build on top of those, and it's pretty interesting what they've been doing. And so they've definitely been one that I've invested in the private sale way back in the day, and I've held a good portion of my coins since then. I've taken profits multiple times on it, right? But I still have some, and I actually bought some more recently because I'm looking at them like they're doing all the right stuff, right? They're bear market builders once again.
Yep.
And the Arbitrum ecosystem. So I bought a bunch of the Arb coin, which, to an extent is not something I would typically do because it's just a governance token, right? It's not used for gas or anything. And governance tokens can be a bit of a mixed bag, but look at like Uniswap. Uniswap was a governance token and it went from $2 to like $40 or something in the last bull market, right? So narrative counts in crypto, and Arbitrum has been doing all the right things. They've got huge amounts of developers showing up. The builders are showing up. They've got, the highest TVL of any layer 2 network, the transactions, the daily average users, all this stuff booming in the Arbitrum ecosystem. And actually Arbitrum ecosystem plays have been something I've been keeping a close eye on as well, whether it's new money markets or new decentralized exchanges or whatever else coming out on the Arbitrum network. So there's a lot of opportunities there too. So
good. You said
what's been on my radar.
Narrative. I wrote narrative. I forget the last part of the sentence, but narrative plays a factor. I don't know the exact words you use there, but so you're talking about like the trends we see, the hot things we see, and it's because people are placing their attention on, let's say, things like AI or ARB or whatever that may be. So you will also make decisions based on that. What's the narrative of the what's the flavor of the next bull run, and how can I position myself to take advantage of the narrative, even if the fundamental value in something else might be higher, but the narrative and the attention isn't over there, kind of an overlooked technology. You would much rather probably look at the narrative.
100%. I mean, narrative drives so much in this market. I've seen so many cryptocurrencies in my time in this market that were just so like great. And they had no narrative, no hype, no ability to connect that vision with a community.
Yeah.
And they floundered and died, and those names are not known anymore, right? Maybe once in a while nostalgia to be, I remember that coin, that was like the big thing for like 5 minutes, but nobody used it or cared about it, or they had the wrong UX or whatever it might have been. That narrative is so incredibly important, and the ability for teams to build narrative and build hype and sustain narrative and hype is a pretty impressive thing when you realize the attention span of the average investor. So, I see something like Arbitrum. I see that's someone who has built a lot of success, and they're continuing to do that. And so that's why it has been attracting my money.
Yeah, with the huge airdrop too. That was probably pretty much the hottest airdrop for a long time, wasn't it? Like everyone's eyes were on it.
And it was like the most telegraphed airdrop ever. And this is one thing I want to mention about airdrops is that I must have mentioned the Arbitrum airdrop, I don't know, 10 times in the newsletter, 5 times on YouTube, and still most people didn't get it.
Right. It was pretty simple. Like it wasn't a hard one to get into. It was a few swaps.
Crazy easy. Yeah. And so 300,000 addresses qualified. Of that, probably 100, 150,000 unique humans, maybe even less, right? So of hundreds of millions of crypto users globally, almost
how many users
got it because they didn't put in the work.
You said?
There's so
how many users were for the airdrop, you said?
So about 300,000 addresses qualified for it, if I remember correctly. And not that many, that many, right? And that's addresses, not people, right? So people had 2, 3, 4 addresses, some of them, and stuff like that. And so it just went to show that people didn't put in the work. People
Right.
didn't show up, right? Even though it was telegraphed and we told people, hey, all you have to, it's super simple, bridge some money over, do a few clicks on the buttons, bada bing,
Yep.
bada boom, you're gonna get the money. But
Yep.
people don't do it. People don't show up. We actually had one that was recently as well, was a Maverick protocol. We did a tutorial on this in the newsletter, how to use it, right? Airdrop
Yep.
potential, right? Because we, with the team telegraphed, okay, there's an airdrop coming up, probably, right?
Yep.
And that one was worth thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
All you had to do, click a few buttons,
Yeah.
throw some liquidity into the pool. But I know for the average user, this stuff can be hard.
Yeah. That's
But
true.
if
Yeah.
you're not putting in the work, you're missing out on the
Yeah.
opportunities. There's people who have literally made hundreds of thousands of dollars just farming airdrops.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. Put in the work. I think that's what do they say when wealth, there's some countries that redistributed their wealth in history, and it always ended up back to the people who are willing to solve problems, put in the work, and
Yeah.
sort of put the pieces together. Unfortunately, I just read a stat too of like IQ, when they measure the IQ of human beings, which by 30 or 28 or something is fairly set. Like there's some plasticity to move it, but for fairly set. It was whether it's fair or unfair, um, the higher net worth individuals did have a higher IQ. EQ plays a big role that they're starting to find in studies. Even if you have a low IQ, if you develop a high EQ, you can combat low IQ. But they
Mm-hmm.
did a study, and I was like, ugh, kind of like the idea of someone born in the first 2 or 3 months of the year in across many industries, but athletics for sure. The top athletes are born in January, February because they have through high school and through elementary 8 9 months in human development in your muscle mass and all that plays a huge role, and so you get picked first on the team, you get more bench, you get more play time, and there's a bias to top athletes are usually born in January. A lot of big entrepreneurs and the really ultra wealthy are like January, February, March babies. So whether it's fair or not, I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I think work is so overlooked of like those who are willing to put in the work, regardless of your
Yep.
IQ or if you were born in January. I think like that's something that's a variable you can actually control, whereas your
Yeah.
IQ or your birth month you can't control. So
That's right. One thing I thought about there is the that mid curve meme where they've got the guy on the one end who's just like the silly ape, and the guy on the other end who's like the genius, and the guy in the
yep,
middle who's like raging out like you can't do that, right? It's so true,
yeah,
because people will tend to overthink stuff, and the cleverer you are, you tend maybe not to overthink stuff. You see opportunities to learn how to identify them, and you act. Or you are on the opposite of the spectrum where you're just like an ape, and you're just like, oh, I'll just ape into this and see what
right,
happens. And those are the people who make a lot of money in the
true,
markets, whereas people in the middle are kind of overthinking stuff, or well,
yeah,
that's not going to work, or this is a silly idea, or whatever it might be. And I'm not going to go put that work in because it's probably going to be worth nothing in the end. We'll waste
yep,
my time. I'll go
yep,
watch Netflix instead for 20 minutes instead of putting in 20 minutes to go farm this coin and make thousands of
yep,
dollars.
yep.
Okay.
Just go do it. Go do it.
Just
It's
do
so
it. Just do
it's cheap
it. Just do
advice,
it,
but
man. That's it.
that's the final little question I got here for you. For all the aspiring, and I do see investors and entrepreneurs as a lot of the same skill sets apply. In fact, a lot of times I've seen entrepreneurs become really great investors because they take a bit of a different approach to it. Whereas sometimes if you haven't had entrepreneurial experience, there's a learning curve to becoming an investor. So I kind of see it as the same thing, sort of. What's your best advice? Your little $1 million, $1 billion, your your best piece of advice that maybe would have saved you a lot of frustration or potentially money or time, which is probably a more important resource that you would have gave to yourself, 10 years ago or at some point. What could you give our listeners who, by the way, on YouTube are typically 27 to 32? We have a bit of an older audience when it comes to the crypto space, and they're hungry for education. A lot do have some entrepreneurial background, and it's like 90% male, which we're trying to change that because women do really well in this space because they actually are a little more risk averse and they make better decisions from what I've seen. But anyways, what's your best advice to someone like that?
If I could go back and talk to myself at 27, it'd be invest sooner, invest harder, and learn faster. And because this is the thing, is it's such, if you're not taught any of this stuff in school, the learning curve is massive, right? And again, the path is also well trodden. So go out, get those books, devour those books. And it's something that ever since I've really started my because it's been a dual journey being an investor, but also an entrepreneur,
Yeah, you
right?
built quite the
And so I've had
business.
to learn about business. I've had to learn about investing. And at the same time, because my business is based on investing and all
Yep.
that stuff. And so it's been a real learning curve. And the amount of stuff, the amount of books I've read, the amount of, clever people whose podcasts I've listened to and stuff like this, it's been immense. But you have to start. The sooner you start, the sooner you're going to be rich. The sooner you start, the richer you're going to be, right? The better life you're going to have. And it's out there for everybody, but don't waste time. Like I look back at a lot of the stuff I did in my 20s, and a lot of it was not necessary, right? It hasn't helped me end up where I've ended up at. That was fun. I had a good time doing some of that stuff, but a lot of it didn't push me forward to make me into the person I am today, right? It was just kind of wasting time. And so if I go back and talk to myself, I would say learn faster and start investing sooner and prioritize getting as much money as you can into investing as soon as you can. Cut out all the crap, cut out the toxic bullshit, the weekends getting wasted and stuff like that. You don't need that, man. Your life's going to be a lot better without it. You're going to feel better, think clearer, and you're going to be a lot wealthier in the long run without doing that crap.
I love that. We're probably around the same age-ish, I'm guessing, and I am so inspired by what like I know 18-year-olds who are building million-dollar e-com brands. I know people who are literally don't know them personally. I see them in high school building online businesses and crushing it, and like the access to information they have. Because I didn't really have a cell phone until I was like 25. I didn't really care. The podcasts they're consuming, I'm like, there's young people. I went to a online business seminar and it was all full of Lambos and that you know it. And the average age of speaker was 23. And I'm like, these people are
Wow.
crushing it because they're getting started so early and there's no risk. Like they can lose it all 10 times before they're 30 and still have enough time to build it all back.
And the
So I
amount of
love it.
information, the amount of knowledge that we've gained losing it all 10 times is
100%.
incredible.
And so I don't know your demographic of people on your thing, but I'm guessing like a lot of young people are really
Yeah.
devoting their time into this and it really biohacking, all that stuff. Like it inspires the hell out of me looking at them. I'm like, by the time you're 30, you can be financially free for the rest of your life and help your entire family be financially free.
Yes.
So thank you for the service you do, sharing your information, your newsletters. Do follow Lark on YouTube, 500,000 subscribers. And I think the content is sometimes the big YouTubers use entertainment and kind of big, I don't know, big headlines to do their thing. Um, I don't know. The videos I went through, I thought they were super honest. I thought they were entertaining, but just really good information. And it's really awesome how you're able to get so
Thank
many
you.
views on videos that are based on good information, not just massive entertainment or fudding. Don't follow him on IG because it's not Lark. I thought it was. So don't even do that. Report that user. Maybe everyone can report
Yeah. That'd
Lark
be
on
great.
Instagram and Twitter. I'm guessing those are the two big places you hang out.
Yeah, that's it. If you were looking for really up to date stuff, hop on Twitter. Try to
Yep.
share my thoughts as I see them coming through in the market. So,
Good. And you got a free newsletter that I know people can subscribe to as well. So we'll leave all
yeah,
the links below. Anything we missed on that front?
I think that's great. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Lark. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.